Hi everyone, this is the first video in a series of forum versus the designer videos. So this is an experiment that I'm starting in which I will be playing the two authoritarian powers in this game, China and Russia, against the United States and the EU as the democratic powers, and these will be controlled by you, that is Board Game Geek users. You can, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can click the link in the show notes below to go to the Board Game Geek forum where I describe the deal in more detail. So in this first video, we start with with setting up the game. So part of this is we create the development draw deck of 16 cards. But perhaps more importantly, we draw the initial set of 6 world events. So we seed the world event deck with the 9/11 world event, which is in there now, and then we drop in another 11 to get an original set of 12 cards, of which I now then proceed to draw 6 random cards, and these will be placed onto the map now as indicated on the cards. So the first one we get here is the Brexit talk. So this is a little bit of on the one hand, an opportunity for the European Union to score some victory points here. This is a world event that only the European Union may resolve. On the other hand, if you fail to do so, then you will suffer 1 victory point reduction at the end of the first period of play when we get into the globalization phase. The second world event we get is nativism. This is placed at random either in the Balkans or the Eastern Europe. So rolling some dice here, and it goes down here into the Balkans. And Russia also gets their own world event, Chechnya crisis in the Russian Federation, and we place separatists, the non-state actor counter there, the dark one, at level 1. Here in West Africa we've got the Niger Delta world event with some militants there, and another world event into Europe. So this is Bronze Knight in the Baltic states. And one more world event here is the Bin Laden, can go in Asia, Middle East or Africa, and so we roll some dice here to determine where it goes, and here we go into the Arabian Peninsula with 2 levels of rogue state influence there to challenge whoever would like to resolve this. One last bit of setup is to place 9 random so-called opportunity tokens or counters onto the map. These are these diamond-shaped counters, and so I've drawn here a set of 9 counters, and then they're just placed into the spaces in which they belong to, as indicated on the counters. So we sprinkle these around the map. The good thing about these is that if a power resolves one, that is, has the sufficient level of influence in that space of the counter and of the type as indicated here on the counter, then you can pick up that counter and then later on use it to play more cards, so essentially take more actions. Last but not least, let me draw your attention to a number of aspects of the game here that may impact your decision as to what you want to do in the game. These aspects I discuss in no particular order because I don't want to influence your decision making. So one potential hotspot we have here in Asia Pacific is we start here with 1 level of Chinese political influence and 1 level of the US military influence. If China is able to bring in a military influence of theirs, so a cube, into the space, that locks down the US military influence there and challenges them in a so-called strategic posture contest. This contest takes place during the globalization phase, so after 4 rounds of play. And the stakes are quite high because democracies who are being challenged in this game in general by the authoritarians might lose a victory point in such contests. So one thing you might do is to think about preempting such a strategic contest by increasing the US military influence in the Asia Pacific. The advantage is that you thereby set yourself up for resolving the opportunity counter here in Asia Pacific as well, which gives you additional actions in the future. A parallel situation obtains here in the Eastern Europe, where it's Russia with one level of economic influence and the NATO, which is controlled both by the US and the EU, with one level of military influence. And if the Russians were able to get a military influence into Eastern Europe, then they would challenge NATO influence here, which then leads later on during the globalization phase to the strategic posture contest, which may result in the democracies actually losing a victory point each there. Here we also happen to have the situation that an opportunity is there ready to be picked up and can indeed be picked up by a military influence. Another thing you may wish to focus on during your first turn or first few turns is try to start resolving these world events. So here's a particularly pressing one, the Bin Laden. The thing to note about this is that, okay, on one hand, you will, if you do resolve, you will get victory points according to the type of influence you are using. So, for instance, for the military, using military influence to resolve it will give you 2 victory points and an additional command, so opportunity to play more cards. On the other hand, political influence can be used and you can gain 1 victory point from it. The turn side is if you fail to resolve this, and you have to, for instance, beat the level of rogue state influence there, the democracies, as indicated here on the red part of the card, will suffer 1 victory point loss and get a terror threat level increase as well if this remains unresolved. So this is one of the more pressing challenges for the democracies. Here's another world event that may be worth your attention, the Niger Delta situation. So their militants are causing trouble. Here the rewards are quite good. So if you use military influence, then you will be looking at scoring 2 victory points and getting to execute the RC icon, that is regime change. So you will actually be able to change the governance type of the space into one that brings the democracies closer to gaining victory points in the so-called War of Ideas, a separate track outside of this view. Alternatively, you could also use political or economic influence to gain 1 victory point and a so-called LP, a legacy point, or half legacy point, which can be turned together with another half into a victory point. The challenge here is that if this if you fail to resolve this event, then another African space will get a plus T, that is plus 1 tension, and tension is the marker that pushes spaces not towards democracy but towards instability and authoritarian rule, which then pushes the War of Ideas track in the other direction towards the end of the authoritarian powers. Other than that, Europe is full of world events. There's the Brexit talks to worry about, which is certainly something that the EU is interested in keeping an eye on, getting off the table before they suffer the -1 victory point reduction should the world event go unresolved. The Bronze Night event here in the Baltic states is another interesting one that, if going unresolved, will generate tension all around Europe, and victory points are on offer here as well. Russia, on the other hand, will be busy with dealing with Chechnya, so that's gonna certainly require their attention, which means that they may be less active on the world stage for the time being. And here in the Balkans, we've got this world event with the regime change option here. If you are politically engaged with this world event, then you can affect the political direction that the Balkans are taking in the post-Cold War period. Another thing that might draw your attention and constitute a little bit of an alternative course of action is to first at least use your board position to build up some or pick up some opportunities. So here, for instance, in Central America, NAFTA can be taken advantage of by the start US economic influence here. If that is increased to 2, then you can at the start of the next turn pick up this opportunity, which gives you more flexibility in other areas. A similar situation is here in North Africa, where the oil opportunity is for the EU something that can be fairly easily taken advantage of. Another thing to think about is also building up your board presence in terms of the so-called reaction abilities on the card. So you can play a card for its suit and an associated action. You can play it for an event effect, such as here, this one resolves a world event if you fulfill the conditions, or you can place the card as a reaction ability, which will turn the card on the map sideways, and then during future turns you will then be able to react to your own actions and other players' actions in the theater in which this card has been placed. So sometimes at the start of the game it's a good idea to use these cards for placing strategically useful reaction abilities in places that are going to see actions taken by other players later on. Note also that this is the starting hand of 5 cards for the US, but you have a mulligan option. So if it looks like you would like to go for options for which you don't have suitable cards, such as, for example, the military suit is pretty weak at this moment. There's only 1 military suit card. There are going to be additional military cards in the US draw deck, so we could play here a mulligan and get rid of some cards here in order to draw new ones, and then hopefully get more military cards if that was the strategic option that you chose. I think that's it for this video. So let's all head down to the Board Game Geek forum and discuss what options you would like to pursue, and then we'll take it from there.